Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma Vishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. A very important verse defining bhakti. Verse number 26. Patram pushpam palam toyam yome bhaktya. Whatever the devotee offers, a leaf, a flower, a fruit, water, I receive that offering. I receive that offering along with the devotion I receive. I don't receive the water. I am not receiving the leaf. I am not receiving the water. I am not receiving that. I am receiving the devotion I am receiving. Prayatatmanaha. Prayatatmanaha means one who is doing prayatna. Prayatatmanaha implies the one who is doing prayatna, effort. So what is the effort that the person is doing? The effort to practice bhakti. The effort to practice bhakti. Now, this is something that we have to understand. The spirit of bhakti versus the act of bhakti. Is it act or is it spirit? Do we talk about the spirit of devotion or are we talking about the act of devotion? Can the spirit of devotion come without any act of devotion? These are the questions. Remember this. One of the biggest misunderstanding, or those who come into Vedanta don't understand this differentiation properly. They think all this bhakti, act of bhakti and all is very superstitious. That is why at some point of time, better not to give Vedantic knowledge to people at all. Because whatsoever limited things they do also they stop. Neither do they develop the right attitude. You follow? So, does the spirit of devotion increase without any corresponding action? These are all important questions that has to be addressed so that when you do this bhakti, you are doing it with the right attitude. First thing, action is important because action produces a corresponding emotion. Action produces a corresponding emotion, or a corresponding emotion creates the action. So it is like two pedals. Action produces the emotion produces the action. Both ways it works. Bhakti is this. Are you able to follow? No time for warming up today. Yeah, straight away, I thought we'll warm up for a few minutes and then get into it, but I just started straight away. If the action becomes very important at one level, because it is action that produces the corresponding emotion. If the action is not done, what will happen? Since it is the action that is producing the corresponding emotion, if the action is not done, what will happen? Common sense. Emotions will disappear. Emotion will disappear. Isn't it? There are actions that causes particular emotions to manifest. There are actions that causes particular emotions to manifest. So the form is important. The spirit is also important. Suppose there is a form, there is a doing, but not backed by spirit. It is useless. You follow? When the spirit is there, a particular form is not necessary. For the spirit to develop, a particular form is necessary. That is why so much of, that's why in this culture, there's so much of concept of divinity everywhere, and the concept of Ishtadevata, and you have to do so many actions in relation to the deity and all that. When it is said, when it is prescribed, these people also understand that it is not direct that way. But what is happening is, there is a form which is not backed by the spirit. It's a dead entity. It's a dead entity. Now, reverse it. Where there is a spirit, a particular form is not necessary. But how do you get to the spirit is the challenge now. How do you get to the spirit? Can you get to the spirit directly without doing any action? Can you get to the spirit directly without doing any action? When you think that you can get into the spirit directly without doing any action, it means you are simply being selfish and self-centered. That's all. You are not willing to make that effort to do an action. You are simply saying it will come, it will come, it will come. From where it will come? You follow? Second argument that people give is, sir, but without having the bhavana, if we do, it is mechanical action, no? It is hypocrisy, no? Better. So what is the use of such mechanical actions? What is the use of that hypocritical actions, mechanical actions, without the spirit backing it? Okay, it's true. Now, how do you develop the spirit? How can you develop the spirit without doing any? How can you develop the spirit without doing any action? Therefore, Bhakti says, Patram, Pushpam, Palam, Toyam is a special category of people where the spirit is already developed. For those who have developed the spirit, they need not really go through any particular form, any particular thing, etc. You need no special action to express the spirit. The moment you have the spirit overflowing, when the spirit of bhakti is overflowing, when the spirit of affection is overflowing, you don't need any special action. Till it is not overflowing, you need to do special actions. This is something that is very, very important to understand. Another problem is where you have an ego, spirit will not come. As long as the ego is there, spirit of devotion and all will not come. A egoistic person cannot have the spirit of ego. Why? How do you say that? The person of ego, the person of ahankara believes that they are taking care of their yoga and kshema, no? The person of ahankara believes in what? The person of yoga, the person of ahankara believes, I have to take care of my welfare, and God is an accomplished to that yoga and kshema. There is no spirit of devotion there. This is called ego, ahankara. God is an accomplice. Accomplice means it's a means to that yoga and kshema. Therefore, there is no spirit of devotion to God. So, how do you develop this devotion? Okay, take it very simply. If you hate a person, you have developed a hatred towards a person. Let us say that. Just say that. You have developed a hatred towards a person. Now you need to get rid of that hatred. Correct? Huh? First of all, you should be convinced that you should get rid of that hatred. No. No, sir, that person deserves it, sir. Next Janma, somebody will meet you, isn't it? Somebody will meet you and maybe they will take you from there, isn't it? So you understand what you have developed hatred, and that hatred should not be there. Okay. What is the way to get rid of that hatred? What is the way to get rid of that hatred? Start loving. Correct? Start loving that person. How? Do karma yoga, do yajna karma, I don't know what all you have to do. Huh? How? You have to start acting as though you love the person and do things to that person. As though you are loving that person and you start doing things to that person. But that is hypocrisy, no, sir? With full of hatred inside, how can I? Okay, it means when you are talking about, I should not be hypocritical, no, sir. When you start talking all that language, Vedanta understands what? You don't want to get rid of your hatred and you are giving justifications to keep the hatred out of them, isn't it? If you want to get rid of your hatred, what do you have to do? You have to do things, which is, if you love the person, what will you do? You need to do it. And when you do it, it is hypocrisy. People say it is hypocrisy. Vedanta comes and says, this is not hypocrisy. Why? Why it is not hypocrisy? Idu Purunja will understand bhakti. Shankar. Idu Purunja will understand what bhakti is. It will not be called as hypocrisy. Why? Your intention is not to cheat the other person. Your intention is to purify yourself. Are you able to understand the difference? Your intention is not to cheat that person. Your intention is to get rid of the hatred. So, somebody will tell you what? Okay, you hate that person. Every day go and give a flower for 41 days. That's why in every culture, giving flower is an act of, giving flower is an act of, Valentine's Day, everybody gives flowers, Why? Because flower is a symbol of love and affection. In Vedanta, in Bhakti, the same flower becomes act of devotion. It can be for lust, it can be for love, it can be for devotion. Here, we say give the same flower with devotion. That action of giving flower, definitely there is an inner conflict. What is the inner conflict? In your inside you, there's an inner conflict. What is the conflict? The act of giving flower implies love and devotion, and you are having hatred towards that person. So what do? You give the flower, and when you give the flower, what are you telling yourself? When you give the flower, what are you telling yourself? I am getting rid of my hatred. This is to get rid of my hatred. So this intention doesn't make it hypocritical. So what happens? By and by what happens? The mind develops an affinity. hatred, hatred goes out. Hatred goes out. You can't do it without backing of knowledge. All this is simply because you have the background of knowledge. Without the backdrop of knowledge, if you do all this, it won't help. Able to understand now? In order to eliminate a given emotion, now you can call it as a law. Make a note. In order to eliminate a given emotion, you bring in the opposite emotion. This technique is what is called Pratipaksha Bhavana. This technique is called Pratipaksha Bhavana. Pratipaksha Bhavana means looking at it from a totally opposite angle. If there is hatred, what do? You bring in love. If there is jealousy, what will you do? If there is hatred, you can bring in love. If there is jealousy, what will you do? You bring in admiration. For everything, there is a corresponding thing that you should. This corresponding opposite is called bhakti. That corresponding opposite emotion you practice is called the practice of bhakti. Are you able to follow? Are you okay till now? It means the act of devotion is as important as the spirit of devotion. Why? Because it is the act that is bringing in the spirit. Once you develop the spirit, a particular form is not necessary, a flower is not necessary, fruit is not necessary, nothing is necessary. Question is, how do you get there? The challenge is how to. It's nice to hear, it's nice to talk, but how do you actually get there? In the action alone, the emotion gets a chance to manifest. And more you allow the emotion to manifest, more it becomes stronger. And we are allowing, and we are talking about this manifesting of emotion, etc., because there is knowledge backing it. Remember that. Without this knowledge backing it, if you do all this, it will be mechanical superstitious. Here, the same thing ceases to be mechanical superstitious because there is knowledge that is backing it. What is the knowledge that is backing it? When you do puja to God, when you do Sahasranama to God, knowledge has told you very clearly what God is not going to be pleased by your Sahasranama. If God can be pleased by your Sahasranama, God will be very upset if you don't do Sahasranama, no? Correct? See, if you praise me, I'll be very pleased, Abdina. If you stop praising me, what will happen? I'll be upset, no? Now, that is how mind functions. God is not going to function in that way. Therefore, when you are doing Sahasranama, knowledge has told you very clearly what? Knowledge doesn't tell you don't do Sahasranama. Knowledge says, please carefully understand, knowledge never says don't do Sahasranama. Knowledge says, if you think God is going to be pleased, that is not going to happen. Why? Because whether you please him or don't please, or there is a way to please God. There is another way to please God. What is another way to please God? There is a way to please God. And make sure that God protects you always. There is a way. What is that way to please God? There is a way to please God. Ram Subramaniam. Correct. Anshu, you are awake today. Obey the law. That's all. Simply obey the law. God is pleased. You don't need to do There is no need to do Sahasranama. There is no need to do all this. But in order even to develop conviction in the law and in order to obey all that, you need to, some acts of devotion is necessary. Are you able to follow? Some act is necessary. And all our praises of God is so meaningless. All our praises of God is so meaningless. How? How do you say all our praises of God Asasrama is meaningless? Imagine the situation. Imagine the situation. A child that is learning to multiply now only. The child is learning to multiply now only. And the father has got Nobel Prize in mathematics. And the child tells the father, you are a great mathematician. Example, Purida, Ram Subramaniam. The child is learning mathematics now. It is learning. Two in the mind, two in the fingers, and it is starting. And it is saying, everybody coming and saying, father is, because the father is a great mathematician, got a PhD, Nobel Prize in mathematics. PhD la illa po yaar veno vaanguranga illa. Raj Shankar is also having a PhD. So adukapram PhD ke value peduthu, isn't it? When he got a PhD, it's not worth it anymore. Ganesh, correct, no? Yes or no? Raj is saying yes, sir. So talk to him later. After the class, talk to him. So he's in PhD, Nobel Prize. Nobel Prize is got, and one day the father helped the child in the homework. One day the father helped the child in the homework. So the benefit that the child got is what from the father? Learning to multiply. And the child says, you are a great mathematician. Will the father get flattered? If the father is getting flattered, no, God has to protect that father first, isn't it? Why? Why the father will not get flattered? Your understanding of greatness is limited by your own knowledge of that field. Remember that. It's why wise one doesn't really get flattered at all. Anybody comes and says you are great, anybody comes and says you are a fool. Both ways, the wise one doesn't get. Honor and dishonor is the same. Why? Because your understanding of a subject is limited by the knowledge of your subject, the knowledge that you have in this subject. Like the English saying goes, you need a Milton to understand the Milton. Elsewhere in the Bhagavad Gita, he says, him the wise calls a sage. Him the wise one calls a sage, he says. Not any fellow. The wise one calls sage. It means what? A title should be given by one who is competent to give the title. No. Title should be given by whom? By one who is competent to give the title, isn't it? Omniscient spelling varadu, isn't it? Omniscient spelling varadu. And we will say God is omniscient. Will God get flattered by this? Will God get pleased by this? And if you believe that God is going to please and God is going to get pleased and therefore God will give you yoga and kshema, that connection is wrong. That's what knowledge says. Are you able to understand now? Knowledge never ridiculed the acts of devotion. Knowledge never said don't do devotion. Knowledge says remember the acts of devotion is only for your self-purification, not to please God. Just as when you go and give a flower to the person you hate, even though there is a conflict inside, you still do it. Why? Even though it looks like hypocrisy, even though there is a conflict inside, you still do it. You understand? Huh? Do it. Simply do it. Therefore, God cannot get flattered. That is very clear. Number two, God will not take what you offer also. God will not take, because what he doesn't have, that he is going to take. You follow? God will not take also. That is why symbolically it is called, when you offer it to God, what do you call that as? God blesses you, it is called prasad. You don't give prasad to God, no. When you give it, it's called naivedya, isn't it? Naivedya means not God eating. Naivedyam doesn't mean God will eat it. Naivedya means God simply sees it. The very sight of him purifies it. It's not that you have to take and put it in his mouth. Are you able to follow? Therefore, even when you offer it to God, you need not fear that he's going to take it away. Don't. Even when you offer it to God, he's not going to take it away. I know that's a rombalam. Aathala potal alandu ponnu. Undiyalla romba potra kudadu. Clear? With all this great men and all, we should not get very close, because they will wipe you. Motta adichiduvanga. They will wipe you clean. Therefore, maintain a safe distance. Mira, correct? He is not going to do that. Therefore, what he doesn't have, that he can take. What is it that you are offering that is valuable to him or her? Him or her, it, I don't know. Whatever, what do you call that? Him, her, it, all pronoun solvum. What do you call that? Whatever pronoun you want to put to God, you put. Doesn't make any difference. Today only I said something very right in grammar. My English teacher will feel very proud of me today. After the class, I will call her and tell her this. Pronoun. Him, her, it, ellam pronoun. Anything you put doesn't make any difference. Whatever you offer is remaining in front of you, no. Then what are you offering? Whatever you are offering is there in, whatever you are offering to God is there in front of you. Then what are you offering? Then why do you offer? Why do you pray? Patram, pushpam, palam, toyam. Why all this? These acts are necessary to bring in a devotion. Once the specific act brings about this bhakti, your whole life becomes a prayer after that. The idea is how your entire life becomes prayer. How does your whole life becomes a prayer? That's what we are aiming to develop. Act of prayer brings about the spirit of prayer. The act brings about the spirit. You follow? How do you develop identification? Only more you do, more identification. Haven't you ever experienced it? More you do, more identification. That much more you can do. Therefore, the acts of devotion says, it becomes the ultimate karma yoga. prayer becomes the ultimate karma yoga here. That's why karma and bhakti, action and the spirit behind action goes together. That's why karma and bhakti becomes one and the same. How? Prayer is an action for which you never know whether there is a result at all in the first place. Are you able to understand? Prayer is an action where, first of all, you don't know whether there will be a result at all. Even if there is a result, you will never know when it is going to, when it will come. Therefore, bhakti becomes the important in the Sandhya prayers, which everybody is supposed to do, irrespective of who you are, what you are supposed to do this Gayatri morning and evening. They will not tell the child to do Gayatri straight away, even though Gayatri is very important. Why not do Gayatri straight away? There is a whole lot of rituals before you start the Gayatri, which is about, that itself will take 45 minutes. That whole lot of rituals brings about an affinity when you chant. And over a period of time, what happens? The very chanting itself is there in the background all the time. The moment the very chant is happening in the backdrop all the time, specific acts you need not do. Able to follow? I started chanting Gayatri when I was in 5th standard. We had the ceremony, so we have to do it. I was not interested in chanting Gayatri and all. I was absolutely uninterested. The only motivation for me to chant Gayatri is only if I chant, I will get my morning coffee. So morning coffee was the motivation. Are you able to follow? Morning coffee is a motivation. But doesn't matter, do it. Over a period of time, what happened? It became so much. Coffee went out of the radar completely. Even though, okay, at that point of time, when I started doing it for the sake of morning coffee, it is a hypocritical prayer, no? Yes or no? Yes, it is hypocritical. Why? Because no intention of Gayatri, no intention of anything. The intention is panna coffee kadikku, panna coffee kudukku maatanga. By and by, what happens over a period of time? In the act of prayer, the spirit develops. The spirit keeps developing. And the spirit to develop faster, knowledge aids. Without knowledge, spirit may not develop at all. What knowledge does now? It doesn't stop the action, it quickens the spirit. The spirit becomes faster, quicker. You follow? Then what happens? Your whole life becomes one prayer. Anything you do becomes a prayer after that. It doesn't matter what you do, whatsoever you do becomes a prayer. Symbolically, patram, pushpam, palam, toyam. It is symbolic. These words are symbolic. The spirit of prayer remains the same. The form doesn't matter after that. The form doesn't matter after any form. In fact, you are in the prayerful attitude the whole day. So anything and everything becomes an offering. This is the state that we are aspiring to reach. The question is, how do you get there? How do you get there? Even though it may look like hypocritical actions, start doing it with a clear understanding of why are you doing it. You don't have an intention of cheating the other. You don't have the intention of faking it. You don't have the intention of cheating it. That is the only way to get rid of the negative emotion. This is the prayer. Patram pushpam palam toyam gome bhaktya pranashyati. Prayatatmana. This person here is putting lot of prayatna. It means what? Bhakti involves a lot of effort. Bhakti involves a lot of effort. Why it lot of effort? Effort from changing the negative emotion to positive emotion requires effort. That is the effort of bhakti. Correct? The effort is to change the negative emotion to positive emotion. It requires. Therefore, Patram Pushpam Palam Toyam says, act of ritual is also very important. The act of worship, not the ritual, because nowadays ritual means it is, because in the Vedic times ritual means worship, because they never knew what is mechanical. Today ritual means mechanical, so we have to use the word worship. Oh, worship is also no, sir. Right attitude. You have to keep changing the words. That's all. An act of worship is that in which one offers patra, pushpa, phala, toya. This verse is talking about the ones who are wanting to transform themselves. And Bhakti Yoga is a very essential method of inner purification. Are you able to follow? This verse talks about people whose minds needs to be purified. So the question that you have to ask is this: do you have a mind that requires purification? No, sir. No, very good. No, sir. I don't need any purification. Sutti irukravungalukku dhaan purify pananum. All people around me must only get purified. I don't need any purification at all because I am pure already. Now you don't need any of this. Supposing you say, and there is a very big suppose. Supposing if you say, I have a mind that requires purification. I have a mind that requires purification means acts of devotion is necessary. You follow? Why it is necessary is because if you are not doing this act of devotion, then what are you doing? Understand the converse, it becomes clear. If you are not doing acts of devotion, then what are you doing? You are acting ragadvesha. If acts of devotions is not happening, it's not that you are sitting and meditating. It's not that you are not doing anything. If the acts of devotion isn't there, you are simply acting on ragadvesha. And what is ragadvesha means? Ragadvesha, the result of ragadvesha is sin, papa, mental agitations. Take it or leave it. How do you say ragadvesha is always resulting in sin only, papam only? Because ragadvesha is always at the cost of, you can fulfill your ragadvesha at the expense of something, somebody. You have to run over somebody, you have to stamp over somebody, you have to really some minimum profit I want, sir. But in a minimum cheating I will do nothing, isn't it? Minimum profit, sir. Is it wrong to work for profit? Absolutely not. Srikant, abdina enna artham anga? Is it okay to? It is okay to cheat. This is how you develop impurities. Bhakti changes that. Are you able to follow now? The Bhakti Bhava changes that. What is that? In Raga Dvesha, there is an aggression always. Remember that. A person victimized by Raga Dvesha will aggression, negative. Aggression in the negative sense. That's where a spiritual person is calm, composed, very soft, affectionate. All that comes in the way because there is no aggression. What brings about an aggression? Raga Dvesha. Makes you that aggressive. Aggression into what? Aggression into what? You want something. What you want, the other is also wanting, no? Are you the only, supposing if you are the only soul on this planet wanting and nobody else wants it, there will not be any aggression at all. You understand that? You want it. At the same time, someone else also wants it. More number of people wanting it. அப்ப என்ன பண்ண முடியும்? After you சொல்ல முடியுமா? Après-vous வருமா? சங்கர் Après-vous வருமா? எல்லாம் வராது. ஏதோ டோர் கதவை திறந்து விட்டுட்டு I am practicing bhakti எல்லாம் சொல்லிக்கூடாது. Open the door and say, I am practicing bhakti. Après-vous. What does après-vous means? After you means, see, everybody wants something. So what do you say? Okay, you take it. So you always want to be in the line, the last. By law, what will happen? By the law, what will happen? You are last in the line. The best thing comes seeking you. Krishchate Lakshmischa Patnyo. Veda mantra, Purusha Sukta. Krishchate, you say, after you. You are okay to stand last in the line. What will happen? You are not intending for that. Genuinely you want to be that. This attitude is called bhakti. Are you able to follow? This attitude is called bhakti. That is called inner purification. That inner purification is what is called as acts of the. So what acts brings about the devotion? What acts bring it about is called the act of devotion. Bhakti. So what do you say? You reduce the aggression. What does aggression means? After you. What is after you means what? See, you also want to go out fast. The other person also wants to go out fast, isn't it? Both of you want the same thing, correct? Yeah. One full lecture on Yajna Karma. You come out of the lecture, traffic jam. One car will not give way to another car, isn't it? We see it every time, we see it happening. Even after, so why? Because everybody wants it, and everybody wants it. It's not just wanting. Everybody wants it first, immediate, instant. I want it first, I want it immediate, I want it instant, and the way to get it is, you have to be very smart, sir. You have to be very intelligent. You have to be very smart. Then only you can get all this. Vedanta comes and says, this is what will happen if you are acting on Raga Dvesha. Bhakti says, the acts of devotion says what? It softens you. It takes the aggression away from you. You become more. Internally you become mellowed down, calm, composed. So after that, what will happen? All your expressions will be one of affection. Even the anger that comes out of the person also will be for your benefit only. That's why I always say this. If a Gautam Buddha gets angry at you, you should be thankful to that anger, no? Correct? If Gautam Buddha gets angry at you, will you get angry back or you will be thankful to Gautam Buddha for that anger? What you will be? You will be thankful to Buddha only. No. Why? Because even that anger is for your welfare. Even that anger is also for your welfare. So, when a wise person gets angry, that anger is also for your welfare only. So, why? Because the act of devotion backed by knowledge brings about the spirit of devotion faster. Then your whole life becomes a prayer. And once your whole life becomes a prayer, you don't need a particular form, a particular thing. Anything you do becomes, all that you do becomes prayer. This is the prayatatmanaha. Ivulo story edu solrom? Ivulo story sonnadhukku reason to explain that one word, prayatatmanaha. He is doing this prayatna. Prayatatmanaha means one who's striving. Prayatna, effort, striving self. What is he striving? What is he striving? He's saying, I'll do an action. I'll do an action. I will do an action which may look hypocritical, which may produce a conflict in me, but I will do it. Why? Because this doing is not to cheat the other. This doing is not, I don't have the intention of cheating the other. If I have the intention of cheating the other, then it is hypocrisy. But I am doing this. Why? Because in this act lies my purification. In this act lies my purification. So offering means you offer for your purification. From this you understand what does bhakti here means. Whatsoever you offer is not for the other. Whatsoever you offer is not for the other. Whatsoever you offer it for your purification. Your purification you offer. Your purification you offer. Bhaktya means one who has devotion. Prayatatmanaha means one who is striving to get that devotion. Bhaktya means one who's, bhaktya means devotion. Prayatatmanaha implies one who's striving to get that. Therefore, devotion and effort must be complementing. That's where in Vedantic, classic Vedantic literature, we will never talk about Bhakti Yoga separately. Karma and Bhakti is always combined. Because action and intention is always combined. No. Even though in the initial stages, we try to segregate it and talk about it as though they are two separate entities, in reality, both are one and the same. So karma, bhakti is integrated. And there is a knowledge that backs it. Distinct and different from this kind of knowledge is another knowledge. That's where knowledge is a separate goshti there. Knowledge becomes something totally separate. Why? Because there, what we call by knowledge is, if you are God, are you worshipping yourself? You are God, are you offering to yourself? You are God. Tattvamasi Shvetaketu. Tattvamasi Shvetaketu. That is a totally different thing altogether, which is not the context here. Are you able to follow? So, adi mix pannakuda. So, when we talk about knowledge, we are talking about what knowledge? You are Tattvamasi Shvetaketu is knowledge. So when you have matured to that level where you are relating to Tattvamasi and all this becomes irrelevant. But you cannot relate to Tattvamasi without going through these two stages. What are the two stages? Integrated karma bhakti. The integrated karma bhakti beautifully in one thing is yajna karma. The integrated karma bhakti gets so integrated in yajna karma. Yajna karma, again, don't think the ritual. Again, yajna karma, don't think literally as the ritual. What it means is the ritual has a meaning, a purpose. When you are offering something to God, it's a ritual. It's an act. But that act has a meaning, that act has a purpose. How does it? What is the purpose? It develops an attitude of surrender and devotion. It humbles you. That constitutes an essential part of spiritual sadhana. இதெல்லாம் கமெண்ட்ரியில் எழுதியிருக்கிறார். All this is there in the commentary. What is there? I'm bringing in stories and elaborating it. It's there. It's there in the book. As a concept, it's there in the book. You follow? Devotion must go hand in hand with your own efforts for spiritual evolution. It should go hand in hand. Symbolically said, prayatatmanaha patram pushpam palam toyam. Once the spirit has developed, you can do whatever you want and that becomes prayer. But till you develop that spirit, you got to follow certain rules and regulations. You can't say, I will not follow any rules and regulations, but straight away I will develop the spirit. It will not work out. You got to follow certain rules and regulations. By following those rules and regulations, there is a maturity. That maturity gives you the flexibility to do whatever you want to do, you can. Why that freedom is given to that person? Because that person is no more aggressive. That person is no more acting on raga dvesha. That person is no more wanting to fulfill their desires. Therefore, whatsoever they do, it becomes an act of prayer. Patram pushpam palam toyam. This is verse number 26. Mere effort without devotion is burdensome act. Effort without emotion backing it is burdensome action. Action will sit on you as a burden. If action is sitting on you as a burden, you can straight away understand what the proper attitude isn't there. The proper bhavana is not there. The proper bhakti isn't there. That is why action sits on you as a burden. Mere action will not take you. Mere acts of devotion also will not take you. An integrated action attitude is important. So the first 6 chapters spoke about the action. The second 6 chapters is talking about the attitude. When both action and attitude are properly combined, you are mature to understand what 13th chapter and 15th chapter. That's how the sequence goes. A student prays morning and evening, but does not study, will not get the degree. A person is studying, too much of agitations, too much of worries, too much of anxieties, also will not get the degree. Correct? A person without studying only go to temple, isn't it? But doesn't study at all, will not get the degree. A student is studying. Even before the exam comes, they are collapsed. Even before the examination starts, they are collapsed. Gave up, isn't it? Yesterday, the boy was telling me, I gave up, sir. Why, Yanda, why did you give up? The first question I wrote answer became wrong. I gave up. Or the anxiety comes and anxiety, worry, stress comes and takes over because there's no right. Because there's no right attitude. Effort is required. Along with effort, attitude is also required. That attitude is bhakti. And that bhakti, to develop the right attitude, certain specific acts are required. Certain specific acts are required in order to develop bhakti, and those specific acts that are required to develop this bhavana is called prayer, ritual. So both must go hand in hand. It boils down to what? Any activity without devotion and dedication will not produce result. The law. Any activity without dedication, devotion will not produce result. Why? Because the mind of that person will be disturbed, and the disturbed mind will perform poorly, and the poor performance will necessarily bring about poor results. This truth is declared again and again and again. This truth is declared again and again and again. Therefore, he says, Patram, Pushpam, Phalam, Oyam, Yome, Bhaktya, striving. This is verse number 26. An important, a very important verse. Yes.
So where we say that even initially it may be hypocrisy, but it is the intention that matters. So about the not fake it doesn't make you go.
Yeah. She's saying, is it okay to do fake it till you make it? Correct. Fake it till you make it. Correct. Fake it. When you are faking, your intention is not to cheat the other. That's why I gave that example. See, you have hatred towards that person. Solution. What is solution? Every day, go and give flowers. 41 days. Mandala Vratham. Karthika 1 Dedi Mala Potungo. Karthika 1 Dedi, you start giving the flower. For 48 days, you give the flower. 49th day, what will happen? Hatred would have gone and affection would have come. How? When you give the flower, there's an inner conflict. What is the inner conflict? You know that it is being very hypocritical, but you understand you are giving it not to cheat the other. You are doing it because you are doing it not to cheat the other. You are doing it for your purification. You want to get rid of those negative emotions. Yeah, how do you get rid of those negative emotions? You follow? One of the important aspects of bhakti is this. In fact, this is what bhakti is all about. Without this, what is bhakti? There's no such thing called bhakti. Leaf signifies action. One symbolism. That also we will see, and then we conclude the verse. Leaf signifies action. Flowers represents desires. Fruit, the aggregate of the desire. Water, crystallization into a form. Only water crystallizes into a form, no. Clear. Water content, it becomes dry and the form changes, no? Isn't it? What does that mean? Dried up, no, dry in the sun. What does that mean? When the water content is gone, the form and shape itself is So leaf, flower, fruit, water indicates what? Water indicates the offering through the physical body as an action. That's why water is patram, pushpam, palam, toyam. We again and again we are talking about doing, because toyam implies action through the physical body, doing it as an action. I have the attitude of giving, sir, but I don't give. Will it work like that? How to develop the attitude of giving, sir? By giving. இந்த வேதாந்தா எங்களுக்கு வேணாம், இது புது வேதாந்தாவா இருக்குது, நாங்க இந்த வேதாந்தெல்லாம் கேட்க வரல. Isn't it? Simply say attitude மட்டும் வச்சுக்கோங்க, கொடுதெல்லாம் வேணாம், உங்களுதெல்லாம் நீங்களே வச்சுக்கோங்க. You don't have to give anything to anybody, just keep it to yourself. But still Vedanta will help you to grow. அந்த வேதாந்தாக்கு தான் நாங்க வந்திருக்கிறோம். வெங்கட், கரெக்டா? We have signed up for that Vedanta only. We have not signed up for this Vedanta. What is this Vedanta saying? விஜய், புரியுதா? ஆச்சாரியா, பக்தி தான், பாவனை தான் ஆச்சாரியா முக்கியம். கொடுத்தாதான் பாவனாவே வரும். புரியுதா? The paradox is that this is the paradox of life. What is the paradox of life? To handle water, you should know swimming, and the only way to know swimming is by getting into water. Avladhaan paradox. The way to handle water is to know swimming, correct? Swimming தெரிஞ்சாதான் தப்பிக்க முடியும். Okay, how will you learn swimming? How will you learn swimming? By jumping into the water. தண்ணியில குதிக்கும் போது ஒரே hope. What is the hope? When you take a plunge into the water, the only one hope. What is the hope? That there is the trainer there who will come and just lift me up. That plunge is bhakti. That plunge is called bhakti, isn't it? But sir, ஜாகிரதையா இருக்கணும் இல்ல? இந்த ட்ரெயினிங், அந்த ட்ரெயினருக்கு சர்டிபிகேஷன் இருக்கான்னு செக் பண்ணிக்கணும் இல்லையா? வெதர் இந்த ட்ரெயினருக்கு சர்டிபிகேட் இருக்குதா, வெதர் the trainer is qualified or not, அதெல்லாம் தெரிஞ்சுக்கணும் இல்லையா? ஃபர்ஸ்ட் செட் அதெல்லாம் தெரிஞ்சுதானே சார் ஜம்ப் பண்ணணும். Krishna will say, wait, some more knocks and shocks is still needed. இல்லையா? வாங்கின அடிவதெல்லாம் பத்தாது, இன்னும் கொஞ்சம் ஜாஸ்தி வாங்க வேண்டியிருக்குது. இன்னும் கொஞ்சம் ஜாஸ்தி வாங்கினா இந்த கொஸ்டின்லாம் வராது. You will plunge. Some more knocks and shocks is required to, little bit more knocks and shocks is required to wake you. Because how do you solve the paradox? To jump into water, you need to know swimming, and the only way to know swimming is by jumping into water. What comes first? First, I will virtually learn jumping into water, sir. Yeah. So what I will do, I will put one virtual thing, and I will not jump into water and all. First, virtually, I will jump into water and see, and then handle everything, and then read a book on swimming, and then write an exam on swimming, and get the degree also in swimming, and still looking at water, afraid. Yeah. What is the other way? Yeah. What is the other way? What is the other way? Simply jump. Simply jump. The doubting mind will not allow you to do that. That's the ragadvesha. The raga dvesha infested mind is the doubting mind. Are you able to connect now? The raga dvesha infested mind is the doubting mind. What is the doubt? What is the doubt? Will I be safe? Will I be safe? Kandipa kaapathiduvinga. Kandipa you will come and surely you will come and save me. No. Surely you are there. No. Surely you are there. No. And how much ever the person is there, and how much ever the person says, I am there, I am there, I am there. Your mind will still say, your mind will still ask, your mind will still say, what? ஏதாவது ஒரு ப்ரூஃப் வேணும்ல சார். Some proof is required, no? You follow? Some proof is required, no? And what is the proof? The proof is to jump into the water, you will know that you are saved. The only way to know that you have saved is jump into the water. But sir, I saw that person jump into the water and getting drowned. I saw this person, I saw that person, I saw in my neighbor's compound it happened, in my school it happened. Oh my God. Krishna will say, same answer. Some more knocks and shocks to wake you up. Some more knocks and shocks to wake you up. Therefore, you need to is doing first or knowing first. Always the dilemma is doing first or knowing first. Is doing first or knowing first. You can know everything. After knowing everything, doing will not become proper. Correct? That's why in English they say practice makes a person perfect, isn't it? In the cookbook, everything is done, everything is told very clearly in the cookbook. And I follow the cookbook perfectly to make a sambar. And it will be a horrible sambar, isn't it? But then you point, I followed everything in the book. No. The book said 1 gram of salt. I brought in the measurement. 1 gram I measured and I 5 ml, 20 ml of oil, I put 20 ml of oil. This much I put everything. Followed, completely followed. And what is the result? Something is not right in that. Something is not right in that. What is not right? Repeated doing didn't happen. Repeated doing didn't happen. The human raga dvesha infested mind, carefully follow. The raga dvesha infested mind will never want to do anything repeatedly. It just wants to do something once or twice and stop it. Again, I repeat. The raga dvesha infested mind will not want to do anything repeatedly. They will want to do it a few times and then simply stop it. Why? Because 2-3 times I did, sir. Didn't come, isn't it? If I tell my people I'm going into the kitchen, that day everybody will become very affectionate to me. Ranjini will become very affectionate. Swati will become very affectionate. They will say, no, don't do anything. You simply sit. Because what I do. What I do is they just can't. So if I want things to be done, Raj Shankar. Yeah. If I want to be done, this is the method. What is the method? I'll say today I'm going to. That day I declare I'm going to cook. That's all. Everything will be served on the table. It will be served. Why? Unless you do it repeatedly, it will not. That repeated doing is act of devotion. That repeated doing is act of devotion. And in that repeated doing, errors will come. In that repeated doing, mistakes will happen. In that repeated doing, errors will come. Bhakti Bhavana tells you, the attitude of devotion says, keep going, keep going, keep going. Are you able to follow? This is this one of the important verses, off-quoted verses, where you get the very essence of act of devotion versus the spirit of devotion. When I say verses means they are not contradictory, but it looks like contradictory because of the inner conflict. What is the inner conflict? In order to serve, I should love. In order to serve, I should love. How will I love? How will love come?
But so,
Ignorant extra Vedanta book padcha vandruma, sir. If I do 2 more books, if I study 2 more books, will it come? If I come for 3 more extra classes, will it come? In order to serve, I need to have love. And love will come only by serving. It is the same dilemma like swimming and water, isn't it? நீச்சல் தெரியறதுக்கு, in order to, without knowing swimming, you can't get into water. Correct? Without knowing swimming, you can't get into water. And the only way to know swimming is getting into water. Now, where do you start? Get into water. Get into water. You follow? So, to conclude this verse, very, very important verse. Act of bhakti as a sadhana is very important. Carefully follow. I'm not saying attitude of bhakti. I'm saying the act of bhakti is very important for a spiritual sadhana because of inner purification. Second, it will instill devotion because devotion implies 2 things. This we saw last week itself. Devotion implies 2 things. What? A surrender and recognition of your limitations. Devotion implies a surrender and also a recognition of your limitations. Your limitations can make you feel helpless and get dejected. Bhakti Bhavana comes and says, no. Your helplessness your limitations need not make you feel helpless. புரியுதா? இவ்வளவுதான் பக்தி. This is what bhakti is all about. Attitude of surrender becomes more and more real through the act of surrender. The act of surrender increases the attitude of surrender. Therefore, the act is very important till you develop the attitude where attitude just doesn't leave you at all. Are you able to follow? Again, I repeat the conclusion. Bhakti as an act is very important because as a sadhana, it is for inner purification. Though it may look hypocritical and all that, don't worry, keep doing it. That is already explained. Second, the act of devotion instill devotion. The act will instill devotion by what? Because it does imply 2 things. What is the 2 things that is implied? A surrender and recognition of your limitations. The recognizing your limitation need not make you feel helpless. Otherwise, you feel very helpless, dejected, depressed, you will not do anything at all. The bhavana of bhakti comes and says, what? You are limited, but the law that is governing you, the law that is making sure is unlimited. Therefore, whatsoever you do will get it will come back to you as the result. Lastly, the act of surrender brings about the act of surrender brings about the attitude of surrender. Lastly, act is irrelevant moment you develop the attitude, and the attitude is unwavering in all circumstances and situations. Are you able to follow? When do you have freedom from the action? You have freedom from the action where you have developed a bhavana of bhakti, a attitude where it remains unshaken under all circumstances, favorable situations, unfavorable situation, the most trying situation, the most pleasurable situation, in all the circumstances, does not take your attitude away. It means you have developed the right attitude, and the right attitude comes through the right action. This is verse number 26. Next week, we'll continue with verse number 27 onwards. Clarifications, Sirka? Clarification. Oh, from the previous class. Regarding the example, deities equals post boxes. I understand it includes all deities across all religions, correct? Mala, correct. Because deity is not religion specific. Deity is natural. So it is correct.
One more poster to name the chat today.
Postbox example, I am but I am giving the answer. Second clarification. Oh, okay. With somebody, even question, sir. With somebody, even after trying for a very long time with flowers, the other person continues to behave wrongly, causing hatred in me. But still nothing has changed, causing hatred in me. So if I ignore that person, will it amount to a purified mind in me? Mala, the question. I tried for a very long time with flowers, sir. It's not working. Because why it is not working? Why it is not working? The intensity of the disease is so strong, medication has to be taken for a very, very, very long time. Maybe lifetime medication, we don't know. Understand it like that. It's very simple. Some diseases, 3 days medication is over. Some diseases, 3 weeks of medication. Some diseases, lifetime. So even after trying a lot, if the other person is still causing hatred in you, 2 possibilities. One possibility is the disease is very strong. Second is it is not backed by right knowledge and understanding. If it is backed by right knowledge and understanding and done for a period of time, long or short, I don't know. If it is backed by act that is backed by knowledge and understanding, repeatedly done over a period of time, will definitely fetch the result. It is a law, he says. It is a law. Therefore, what you should do? Should I ignore that person? Should I ignore that person? No. Continue to serve. Supposing the person is a terrorist, sir. Supposing the person is a terrorist, what do you do? You don't store that person's phone number in your mobile. That you should not do. Don't make any phone call to that person. But manasam karma, vachikam karma, you should do. Pray for that person. Even then, act of service will not stop.
Sir, my question is, I mean, the problem comes, the problem is in me, I agree, because I expect other person to change.
Yes.
That is the reason I see a conflict that causing an hatred in me, that I understand.
Yes.
So to solve that, can I not simply understand that this is the way the other person behaves?
Yes.
And that point of view, I mean, from that point of view, if I just ignore.
Yes.
Ignore means ignore that person totally, or ignoring my expectation.
Correct. Ignoring your expectations and continue serving.
Okay, depending on the role. Yeah.
Yes, exactly correct.
Yeah. So in
Ignore
that
your expectations. Correct.
so in that sense, I don't need to keep sending flowers, because keep sending flowers, though it is aimed at purifying my mind, indirectly it kind of tells that I want the other person to be softer rather than changing my attitude.
You have to do that act. That's what I'm saying. The whole class, you have to do that act. Without doing that act, how attitude will change?
But if I cut my expectation itself, that itself
How
is
would you cut it? How would you cut it? It's correct. If you cut your expectations, if you don't have any desires, if you don't have any expectations, problems are sorted out. Correct. The question is, what do I do to cut my expectations? Acts. That's what this verse is saying. Acts is very, very important. Action is very important. Yes. How do I cut my attitude? I can't simply lock myself up in the room and say, I'm cutting my attitude, I'm cutting my attitude, I'm becoming pure, I'm becoming pure. And the moment I open the door and I see that person, all the hatred comes back. Ram Tirtha gives a beautiful example. A person who spent 25 years in solitude, Himalayas. He thought he has conquered everything. He thought he has conquered everything. Now he wanted to visit his hometown. Came to New Delhi railway station to take the train. One fellow stamped his feet. One fellow stamped his feet. That's it. Amtirtha says, instead, if you have stayed here in Delhi station and worked on yourself in 3 years, you would have become a better person than 25 years of solitude in Himalayas. Are you able to understand the difference? Mala. So it is always the act that matters. It is the act that is very important. That's why in Vedanta, a lot of emphasis is placed on do it, do it, do it. There will be hypocrisy. All these things will be there. Doesn't matter. Do it. With the remembrance of it is for my inner
purification.
It is for my inner purification. It has to be done. It is for how does inner purification happens? Mala. More you do, more your expectations increases. Only by doing, you know how to cut down your expectations. Because more and more you do, naturally you believe you have a right over the result. More and more you do, naturally you believe you have the right over the result and your expectations are very high. So how to cut it? How to do and not have expectations? How to do and not have expectations? So more and more you do, more and more you are giving yourself an opportunity for introspection. More and more you do, you are giving yourself an opportunity for understand it. From that angle, they say, do it. You follow? Mala.
Super.
Huh? Rida? Yeah. Is it okay? Did I help you?
Yeah, super.
Avladana, Shankar, Venkat, Avladana? Huh? With this, we conclude for today. We continue with 27 onwards in the next week.